In the 1980s, packed sailboat fleets and buzzing clubhouses made racing America's ultimate summer sport, young, affordable, and open to millions. But quietly, a new barrier, $200,000, crept in, shattering that golden age. What happened to the sport that once defined a generation? And why did this single cost help break United States sailboat racing? The answers might upend what you think you know. Wednesday nights in Annapolis once felt electric. The docks overflowed as dozens of crews readied their boats, laughter and last-minute repairs echoing across the water. On the racecourse, 40 or more J-24s would crowd the starting line, sails snapping in the breeze, each team eager for the gun. Along the shore, families and friends gathered for post-race cookouts, swapping stories and planning the next regatta. The scene repeated itself in Newport, Chicago, and hundreds of clubs nationwide. For many, the season's calendar revolved around these events. Junior sailors graduated from summer programs straight into adult fleets, finding themselves welcomed as regular crew. Veterans remember the camaraderie as much as the competition, how newcomers were handed a line, taught the ropes, and invited for burgers afterward. The average skipper was in their 30s or 40s, often a teacher or electrician by day, and a fierce tactician when the wind picked up. Fleet sizes were legendary. A single class could draw 40 boats or more for a weekend regatta, with waiting lists for dock space and a full slate of social events back at the club. The fleet wasn't just big, it was alive, pulsing with energy and possibility. Whether you were a seasoned helmsman or a teenager learning to trim sails, the sense of belonging was unmistakable. Racing was as much about community as it was about winning. Every finish, every gathering, stitched together a culture that felt open, joyful, and within reach for anyone willing to join. In 1980, owning a race-ready sailboat was not out of reach for a working family. A brand new Catalina 27, one of the most popular club racers of the era, listed for about $15,000. That price, even adjusted for inflation, put boat ownership within the grasp of teachers, electricians, and young professionals, people who saw racing as a weekend adventure, not a luxury reserved for the elite. Sails, too, were manageable. A full set of competitive racing sails cost around $2,500. Most skippers could make them last several seasons before needing replacements, and the technology was simple enough that repairs could be handled at home or with help from a friend at the club. Racing felt accessible. Age was just a number on the docks. The average club member was in their 30s or 40s, with plenty of newcomers in their 20s moving up from junior programs. There was a sense of pipeline, young sailors stepping into adult fleets, learning from veterans, and sometimes scraping together enough for a partnership on a used boat. The barriers to entry were low enough that enthusiasm mattered more than a bank account. The numbers tell the story. A $15,000 boat, a $2,500 sail package, and a club full of skippers who looked like neighbors, not patrons. This was a sport built on accessibility and shared excitement. For many, the cost felt like buying a new car, significant but possible with some planning and sacrifice. The result was a thriving, youthful community where ambition and camaraderie mattered more than net worth. Racing was not just fun, it was attainable. Invoices for a competitive sailboat campaign now read like a luxury car showroom. The price of a new hull alone can stretch from $60,000 to $120,000, and that is before the first race is even on the calendar. Sails, once a manageable expense, have become a recurring burden. Since North Sails launched their 3DI composite technology in 2010, top teams feel compelled to spend $10,000 or more for a new set every season or two. The expectation to keep up with these advancements has turned sail replacement into an arms race, with some classes quietly normalizing annual upgrades just to stay competitive. Rigging costs have climbed in tandem, with a full replacement running $8,000 to $20,000, often needed every 5 to 7 years, and sometimes sooner after a hard season. Electronics, now essential for precise navigation and race data, Tack on another $6,000 to $18,000. Even the auxiliary engine, a silent workhorse, can demand $7,000 to $15,000 for a midlife repower. Marina slip fees are a shock to newcomers. Monthly rates that once hovered around $1 per foot now reach $12 to $15 per foot in most metro areas, translating to $12,000 or more per year for a typical 30-foot boat. For those tempted by a used bargain, retrofit and repair costs quickly erase any savings. Surveyors regularly warn that a $5,000 Craigslist special may need $15,000 to $25,000 in upgrades just to meet basic safety and racing standards. Even veteran owners, seasoned by decades on the water, admit that today's invoices leave them shaking their heads. The numbers pile up, line by line, until the dream of racing feels out of reach for all but the most committed, or the most fortunate. A campaign budget for a competitive 5-year run now lands with a thud just over $205,000, even for a so-called entry-level class. The cost breaks down with the cold logic of a spreadsheet. A used hull, after the essential retrofits such as new rigging, electronics, and a reliable engine, demands an upfront outlay of around $43,000. Annual slip fees in a metro marina run $12,000 or more, adding up to $60,000 over 5 years. Sails, once a once-in-a-while purchase, now cost $8,500 to $9,000 a season. Top teams swap inventories to keep pace, totaling $45,000 by the end of year 5. Maintenance, insurance, and safety gear add another $25,000. Then come regatta entries, travel, and crew costs, $7,000 to $10,000 a year, easily $40,000 or more across the campaign. The total does not include professional coaching or the inevitable surprises, like a cracked keel or electronics failure mid-season. Even without those, the sum is staggering. Veteran racers, who once managed a season on the equivalent of a modest vacation, now see the math and shake their heads. What was once a working family's adventure has become a financial commitment rivaling a luxury car lease or a second mortgage. The barrier is no longer just about skill or time. It is about whether anyone outside the top income brackets can afford to stand on the starting line at all. At many clubs today, the docks look almost unrecognizable. Veteran skippers, now mostly in their 60s or 70s, gather with smaller and smaller crews. Some remember when they had to turn people away on race night, and now they struggle just to fill a boat. The average club member age has crossed 60, and the pipeline from youth sailing has thinned to a trickle. National retention rates show only about 57% of junior sailors stay involved after high school, and even fewer make it into adult racing. The reasons stack up quickly. The cost of entry, yes, but also the atmosphere. Newcomers describe walking into yacht clubs that feel more like private lounges than community centers. Rules and expectations can be intimidating, with a culture that prizes technical mastery and fierce competition. For young adults, the appeal of kiteboarding, paddleboarding, or wake surfing, sports with low barriers and instant fun, proves hard to resist. The result is a sport aging in place, with shrinking crews and empty spots on the course where new faces should be. Rows of empty slips now stretch across marinas that once had waiting lists. Brokers report hundreds of unsold boats, with listings lingering for months and prices quietly dropping. The glut is impossible to ignore. In some regions, more than 40% of the available inventory remains unsold by season's end. Facing this reality, a handful of forward-thinking clubs have started to rewrite the rulebook. Instead of expecting new racers to buy in, they have invested in shared fleets, modern boats owned by the club and leased to members for a fraction of the usual cost. Lease programs now offer competitive boats for as little as $2,500 to $5,000 a season, sidestepping the six-figure hurdle that kept so many out. At one East Coast club, a longtime officer describes how their lease fleet brought in a wave of new faces. Retention rates climbed to nearly 40% among first-time adult racers. a figure that had seemed out of reach just a few years earlier. Even at the sport's highest level, the America's Cup imposed a €75 million cap, a move intended to curb runaway spending and keep more teams on the water. These experiments, still in their early days, hint at a path forward, one where affordability and access might finally matter as much as tradition. Today, the $200,000 barrier keeps new generations off the water, while empty docks multiply across once thriving clubs. If racing's future depends on exclusivity, America risks losing not just a sport, but a culture. The wind still calls. Who will answer? Share your thoughts below.